in locations with slight relative movement. Where is intergranular corrosion most likely to occur on an aircraft? Along grain boundaries of aluminum alloys that have been improperly heat-treated. Where is dissimilar metal corrosion most likely to occur on an aircraft? Anywhere different types of metals come in contact with one another. Where is stress corrosion most likely to occur on an aircraft? In a metal component that is under tensile stress. What must be done to a piece of aluminum alloy to remove surface corrosion and to treat the metal to prevent further corrosion? Remove corrosion residue with an aluminum bristle brush or Scotch-Brite pad. Apply a conversion coating and a protective finish. What is used to keep corrosion from forming on structural aluminum alloy? An oxide coating or aluminum cladding. How may rust be removed from a highly stressed metal part? By glass bead blasting. How should an A&P minimize corrosion at piano hinges? Clean regularly and properly lubricate. What tools are proper for removing corrosion from aluminum alloy? Aluminum wool or aluminum bristle brush. What can be used to repair the anodized surface of an aluminum alloy part? Alden. What type of device is used to remove surface corrosion from a piece of magnesium alloy? A stiff-hulled bristle brush. How is the inside of structural steel tubing protected from corrosion? Linseed oil. What is meant by root of a number? The root of a number is one of two or more equal numbers that when multiplied together will produce the number. What is meant by scientific notation? A method of writing very large or very small numbers using powers of 10. What is an angle? A figure formed by two lines radiating from a common point. What is meant by right angle? An angle of 90. What is an obtuse angle? An angle greater than 90 but less than a straight line. What is an acute angle? An angle between 0 and 90. What is a quadrant? 1/4 of a circle. What is a sector? The portion of a circle bounded by two radii and one of the intercepted arcs. What is a polygon? A closed figure having three or more sides. What is an acute triangle? A triangle with three acute angles. What is an obtuse triangle? A triangle with one obtuse angle. What is a right triangle? A triangle containing a 90 angle. What is an equilateral triangle? A triangle with three equal sides. What is an isosceles triangle? A triangle with two equal sides. What is a scalene triangle? A triangle where no two sides are equal. What is the hypotenuse of a right triangle? The side opposite the right angle. What is a quadrilateral? A polygon having four sides. What is a parallelogram? A closed four-sided figure in which the opposite sides are parallel. What is a trapezoid? A closed four-sided figure in which only one pair of opposite sides are parallel. What is a hexagon? A closed six-sided figure. What formula is used to find the area of a circle? Pi x r squared. What formula is used to find the volume of a cylinder? 0.7854 x d squared x hour. What formula is used to find the area of a rectangle? A equals LXW. What is used to find the volume of a rectangular solid? V equals LXWXH. What formula is used to find the area of a triangle? A equals /2. What is the significance of pi? Pi is the constant amount the circumference of a circle is greater than the diameter. What is the value of pi? 3.1416. What is meant by ratio? A fraction that compares one number to another. What is meant by a proportion? A statement of equality between two ratios. What is meant by a percentage? A fraction having 100 as the denominator. What is meant by a negative number? Any number less than 0. What steps are used to add sign numbers? Add all plus numbers. Add all numbers. Subtract the smaller number from the larger number, keeping the sign of the larger number. What records must be made of a 100-hour inspection before the aircraft is approved for return to service? An entry must be made in the aircraft maintenance records that describes the type, the extent and date of the inspection, the aircraft TTS, and the signature, certificate type, and number of the person approving the aircraft for return to service. What record must be made of the compliance of an AD? An entry must be made in the maintenance records that the AD has been complied with. It must include the AD number and revision date, the date of compliance, the aircraft TTS, the method of compliance, and whether this is a recurring AD. Where can you find an example of the correct type of write-up to use for recording a 100-hour inspection in the aircraft maintenance records? CFR 43.11. What action must a mechanic take if the aircraft he is inspecting on a 100-hour inspection fails because of an unairworthy component? A maintenance record entry stating the aircraft is airworthy except for the following discrepancies, and a discrepancy list provided to the aircraft owner. What record must be made of a major repair to an aircraft structure? FAA Form 337 and a logbook entry. How many copies must be made of a Form 337 after a major repair? What is the disposition of each copy? At least 2 copies, one to the FAA and one to the owner. Who is authorized to perform a 100-hour inspection? A certificated A&P mechanic. Who is authorized to perform an annual inspection? An A&P mechanic with an IA. For how long must the record of a 100-hour inspection be kept? For 1 year or until superseded. Can an A&P mechanic supervise a non-licensed person perform a 100-hour inspection? No. Where can you find a list of the basic items that must be inspected on a 100-hour inspection? FAR Part 43 Appendix D. What is done with the aircraft maintenance records that include the current status of the applicable ADs when the aircraft is sold? The maintenance records must be transferred with the aircraft when sold. What is meant by a progressive inspection? An inspection that is approved by the FAA that allows for an inspection to be completed on a schedule. Who is authorized to rebuild an aircraft engine and issue a zero-time maintenance record? The manufacturer or a facility approved by the manufacturer. What is meant by matter? Anything that occupies space and has mass. What are the 3 physical states in which matter can exist? Solid, liquid, gas. What is meant by pressure? Force that acts on an area. What is the standard sea level atmospheric pressure in Hg and psi? 29.92 hectograms, 14.69 psi. What characteristic of the atmosphere determines the speed of sound? Temperature. What is meant by the fulcrum of a lever? The point about which the lever rotates. Give an example of a first class, second class, and third class lever. First class, screwdriver being used to pry the lid off a can of paint. Second class, wheelbarrow. Third class, hydraulically retracted landing gear. What is the formula to find work? Work equals force x distance. What determines the amount of mechanical advantage of an arrangement of ropes and pulleys? The number of ropes. What determines the mechanical advantage of a gear train? The ratio of the number of teeth on the drive gear and the number of teeth on the driven gear. What is meant by the resonant frequency of an aircraft structure? The frequency that produces the greatest amplitude of vibration in the structure. What is the principle on which ultrasonic inspection is based? A fault in the material will change the material's resonant frequency. What are two types of fluids? Liquid and gaseous. What is meant by the density of a fluid? The mass per unit volume of a fluid. What is meant by the specific gravity of a fluid? The ratio of the density of a fluid to that of pure water. What does the increase in temperature of a confined gas have on its pressure? Increase in pressure. What effect does an increase in the volume of a gas have on its temperature if the pressure remains constant? The temperature decreases. What effect does an increase in the pressure of a confined gas have on its temperature? As pressure increases, temperature increases. What is the difference in fluids used in a hydraulic system and those used in a pneumatic system? Fluid used in a hydraulic system is incompressible. What effect on density altitude is caused by an increase in air temperature? As the temperature increases, the air density decreases and the density altitude increases. What effect does an increase in density altitude have on engine performance? Air density decreases and engine performance decreases. What effect does high humidity have on piston engine performance? Water vapor is less dense than air, so it decreases air density, which in turn decreases engine performance. What does the specific gravity of the electrolyte of a lead-acid aircraft battery indicate? The amount of acid relative to the water in the electrolyte. This is an indication of the state of charge of the battery. How much force is produced by 1000 psi of hydraulic pressure acting on a piston with an area of 20 square inches? 20,000 pounds. How many cubic inches of fluid is forced out of a cylinder by a piston with an area of 20 inches when the piston moves 5 inches? 100 cubic inches. What will happen to the pressure of a confined gas if the temperature of the gas is increased? The pressure will increase. What is meant by a temperature of absolute zero? The temperature at which all molecular movements stop. What is the Celsius equivalent of a temperature of 50? 10 C. What are the three methods of heat transfer? Convection, conduction, and radiation. What is meant by the absolute humidity in the atmosphere? The actual amount of water that is in the air. What causes ice to change into liquid water? The absorption of heat energy. What happens to the inside of a solid material when it absorbs heat energy? The molecules move faster. What is the basic unit of heat in the English system? British thermal unit. How much work will one British thermal unit of heat energy perform? 778 foot-pounds of work. What is the basic unit of heat in the metric system? Calorie. How much heat energy is in a small calorie? The amount of heat energy that will raise the temperature of 1 gram of water 1 degree Celsius. How much heat energy is in a large calorie? The amount of heat energy that will raise the temperature of 1 kilogram of water 1 degree Celsius. What is the first law of thermodynamics? Heat energy can neither be created or destroyed. What is the second law of thermodynamics? Heat energy can only flow from one body having a higher temperature to one with a lower one. What is an example of heat transfer by conduction? Removal of heat from an engine cylinder by air flowing over the surface. What is an example of heat transfer by convection? The uniform heating of the air in a room by a floor heater. What is 1/4 of heat transfer by radiation? The heating of the Earth's surface by the sun. Why do most metals expand when they are heated? The electrons are moving faster and expand their orbits. What is meant by the density of air? The weight of a given volume of air. What is meant by relative wind with regard to an airfoil? The direction the wind strikes the airfoil. What is meant by the critical angle of attack? The highest angle of attack at which air passes over the airfoil in a smooth flow. What is meant by the stagnation point of an airfoil? The point on the leading edge. What is meant by angle of attack? The acute angle formed by the chord line of the airfoil and the direction the air strikes the airfoil. What is the difference between speed and velocity? Speed is the rate at which an object is moving. Velocity expresses both the rate and direction an object is moving. What is meant by air density? The mass of air in a given volume. What is meant by thrust? The forward aerodynamic force of an aircraft generated by a propeller or jet engine. What is meant by drag? The aerodynamic force that acts in the opposite direction of thrust. What is meant by the auto-rotation in a helicopter? The aerodynamic force that causes the rotor to spin with no engine power. What is meant by the symmetry of lift produced by a helicopter rotor? The difference in lift between the two sides of the rotor disc when the helicopter is in forward flight. What is a type certificate data sheet? A document that sets forth essential factors which are necessary for U.S. airworthiness certification of aircraft engines and propellers. What document specifies the type of fuel to be used in an airplane? TCDS. What document would you use to find the control surface movement for a specified airplane? TCDS. Why is it necessary to refer to the TCDS for an airplane when conducting a 100-hour inspection? The TCDS includes the specs required for the aircraft to maintain its airworthiness status. Who issues a service bulletin and what is its purpose? It is issued by the manufacturer and used to outline the procedures to make the product operate more efficiently or safer. May the data you find in an aircraft maintenance manual be used as approved data for an aircraft repair? Yes. Where would you find the dimensional tolerances for the wrist pin fit in an aircraft engine? In the overhaul manual for that engine. What document would you use to find an approved repair for a damaged wing spar? SRPM. What document would you use to find the part number for a landing light bulb? IPC. What document would you use to troubleshoot a malfunctioning electrical flap system? Wiring diagram. Where would you find the empty weight of an airplane? Weight and balance records. What FAA publication describes methods of NDT? AC 43-3 Non-destructive testing in aircraft. What is the purpose of an MEL? An MEL permits operations with certain inoperative items of equipment until a repair or replacement can be accomplished. What is a master minimum equipment list? A document approved by the FAA that lists the minimum operative instruments and equipment required for safe flight in that aircraft type. What are instructions for continued airworthiness? A document prepared by the operator of the helicopter and approved by the FAA that explains what maintenance will be performed. What is the approved flight manual or pilot operating handbook? Required documents that must be carried in an aircraft that list the operating limitations specific to that aircraft and its engines. Are instructions included in the FAR's mandatory or optional? Mandatory. What is the purpose of 14 CFR Part 43? It describes maintenance, preventative maintenance, rebuilding, and alteration of certificated aircraft. Who is authorized to approve an aircraft for return to service after a major repair? An aircraft mechanic holding an IA. Who is authorized to perform preventative MX on an aircraft that is not flown under Part 121, 127, 129, or 135? The holder of a pilot certificate that flies that particular aircraft. Who is authorized to rebuild an aircraft engine and issue a zero-time record? The manufacturer of the engine or an approved repair station. Who is authorized to approve an aircraft for return to service after a minor alteration has been performed on the airframe? A certificated mechanic holding an airframe rating. What is the purpose of an AD? To correct an unsafe condition. What is the first step in the issuance of an AD? A notice of proposed rulemaking is published in the Federal Register. How is information on an AD disseminated? It is printed and distributed by first-class mail to the registered owners and certain operators of the products affected. What type of AD may be adopted without an NPRM? ADs of an urgent nature are issued as immediately adopted rules without prior notice. How is information on an emergency AD sent to the owner or operator of an affected aircraft or other product? By first-class mail. What publication lists all of the ADs that apply to aircraft, engines, propellers, or appliances? AC 39-6 Summary of Airworthiness Directives. How can you get information on subscribing to the airworthiness directives? Contact FAA. What is the significance of the identification number 91-08-07R1? 91 equals date AD was issued, 08 equals issued the 8th biweekly period, 07 equals the 7th AD issued this period, R1 equals first revision. Is it mandatory that the information in an AC be complied with? No. May all of the information in AC 43.13 be used for approved data? No, it is acceptable but not necessarily approved data. What is the purpose of general aviation airworthiness alerts? They contain information gleaned from malfunction and defect reports to warn maintenance personnel of problems that have been reported. What is the minimum age for a mechanic certificate? 18. What are the two ratings that can be issued to a mechanic? Airframe and power plant. How many months of practical experience is needed to qualify for the mechanic rating for both airframe and powerplant? 30 months. What can be used in place of the 30 months of experience to qualify to take the mechanic tests? A certificate of completion from an aviation maintenance technician school. What type of experience is required to take the tests for mechanic certification? Practical experience with the procedures, practices, materials, tools, and equipment usually used to perform maintenance and alterations on airframes and engines. What tests are used to demonstrate that a mechanic applicant has the proper knowledge? Writtens. What tests are used to demonstrate that a mechanic applicant meets the minimum skill requirements? Oral and practical tests. What certificate and ratings are required for a mechanic to conduct a 100-hour inspection and approve the aircraft to service? Both airframe and powerplant ratings. What certificate and ratings are required for a mechanic to conduct an annual inspection and return the aircraft to service? A mechanic certificate with an inspection authorization. When, after making a permanent change of address, is the holder of a mechanic certificate required to notify the FAA? 30 days. How many months of experience within a 24-month period must a mechanic exercise the privileges of his or her certificate? 6 months. What constitutes a capacitor?